The 2022 NFL season kicks off on Thursday, August 11th, with the New England Patriots hosting the New York Giants. And while some say they won't bet the preseason, many NFL handicapping experts say there's more value betting the preseason than any other sport. The NFL preseason is $249, but you can save $100 by purchasing this package by kickoff of the Hall of Fame game on August 11th. The entire NFL preseason for just $149? Yes, football is back. This offer expires when the Patriots and Giants kick off, and your access begins the moment you sign up, so you will get any early releases the moment they are loaded.
Welcome into the USFL Betting Show Playoff Edition. I am Drew Martin, joined by Adam Trigger, Rob Veno, and Tony Mejia of WagerTalk.com. Guys, we got 3 games left as we move from Birmingham, Alabama to Canton, Ohio. There was 40 games played in the regular season, just 3 games left. 3 good matchups. I mean, 2 good matchups here in the semifinals. We'll see what the championship game brings us, but we get the Philadelphia Stars, the New Jersey Generals. We're seeing the Generals minus 4.5, 47.5, the total in the first game on Saturday. And we got the second game, New Orleans Breakers and the Birmingham Stallions. Stallions minus 4 and a hook or minus 5, 44 being the total. We're going to go around the horn here, break down both of these games, get best bets at the end. Final thoughts for USFL. It's all coming your way from the 3 guys that know this league as good as anybody out there. So we're going to go start it here with the first game up. We're talking Saturday, June 25th here. Back-to-back games, 3 o'clock Eastern start. Of course, it's in Canton, Ohio. First game up here. Tony, we can start off with you, man. Philadelphia Stars, New Jersey Generals, Tom Benson Hall of Fame field here in Canton, Ohio. Minus 4.5, that's the Generals as the favorite. 47.5 the total. 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Tony, what are you thinking in the first playoff matchup?
Well, can I drop the cliche in the USFL that it's hard to beat a team 3 times? Is that allowed?
Yeah, that works.
I mean, I think the Generals will get the job done. They're on a 9-game win streak. And to me, they've been the most consistent team. Birmingham's had a few close calls. They benefited from being the home team in the bubble. So to me, the best regular season belonged to the Generals, and they to the winner victors go the spoils. Mike Riley got named Coach of the Year. They've got 2 of the top 3 rushers in the league. Just missed out on a rushing title. Darius Victor has scored 4 touchdowns in 4 straight games. So he should get a crack to get back in the NFL. This is a complete team. I think the only question mark is at quarterback. DeAndre Johnson got knocked around last week, and he's been platooning with Luis Perez. I prefer Johnson to be out there. I think his mobility is an asset. I'm going to like the Generals in this matchup. I'll lay the points. I think to me, the Stars have been solid offensively for most of the season, led the entire USFL in scoring with 262 points in their 10 games, a shade under 27 points per game. But their defense also, surrendered the most points. Them and the Pittsburgh Maulers surrendered 243 points each. So I think there are going to be opportunities for the Generals to take a lead into the fourth quarter and then bleed the clock with that rushing attack, be it Johnson from the quarterback position or their 2 standout running backs. So like the Generals here, think I'm more confident in this pick than in the next one. So this will probably be my best play of the day.
All right, we'll get to that at the end of the show. Trig, coming to you next. We talked a little bit off camera in terms of just kind of mobility at the quarterback position. Tony went into it a little bit in terms of Johnson's health, because I think he's going to help him offensively as well. I'd prefer him, if I'm looking to kind of lay the number here with the Generals, to have him fully healthy, kind of running the ship. But what are your thoughts here? Stars, Generals, the 2 top teams in the North Division in the USFL. What are you thinking?
So, Drew, this for me, is the tougher of the 2 matchups to figure out. And the reason is, all of the numbers and everything sort of leans overwhelmingly to the Generals. If you look at their rushing attack, league leading, Philadelphia may have a hard time stopping the run. It all sort of stacks up in favor of the Generals. But I go back to the first 2 meetings, and I understand last week's was kind of meaningless, still a 3-point game. The first meeting between the 2 teams was still close, So I'm going to kind of hope personally that people continue to bet the Generals and this spread gets a little bit more out of whack, because I may come in and take the Stars if I'm getting a little bit better numbers. So just some season-long trends here, Drew. Favorites straight up 30-10 in the 40 USFL games this year. 30-10, which is pretty overwhelming, 75%. But against the spread, just 21-19, and the totals were 21-19. So the spreads have been definitely, they've definitely come into play. If you look at those numbers right there, I'll probably stay away from this one. I have a pick I love in the next game, so I don't necessarily need to force it here. But I think if this line moved, because it was, they were getting a lot of Generals money, and all of a sudden it got up to around 6, I might be willing to take a shot with the Stars, because they've hung around in both regular season meetings, and I do think it's tough to beat a team 3 times. Case Cookus has been solid in, as the backup that came in. Now he's been the starter for a while, and the Stars can throw it. So I think it could be a pretty exciting game, but I would need a couple more points, I think, to make a best bet with the Stars.
Case Cookus, the Northern Arizona quarterback, so going from small college to the USFL and throwing it around a little bit. Good stats there in terms of 21-19 guys against the spread. Also over/under stats. I mean, we remember going back through the first 2 weeks of the USFL, I think it was 7-1 to the under, and sure enough, it's kind of compensated here. Odds makers have, I guess we got to tip our caps a little bit to them in terms of being pretty good, both sides and totals. Robbie, in conclusion, first game up, afternoon. Good matchup here. What do you like in between the Philadelphia Stars and the New Jersey Generals?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of where you ended there, Drew, as far as totals are concerned, both of these teams closed the season 6-1 to the over. So for as much as we've talked all season long about limited possessions when Jersey plays, about the best rushing attack in the USFL being the New Jersey Generals, they're very good on defense. Their games still get over. Last week, though, we were staring at this contest in 41.5 when we all thought it would be a vanilla game and used it as a best bet under. And this week we're staring at 47.5, right? You're plus 6 points on the total here in this game. I'll tell you what's interesting about last week is that game scores 49 points and there's only 16 possessions in the entire game. Each team had 8. Each team scored 50% of the time they had the ball. 4 scores by Philly, 4 scores by the Generals in their 8 possessions. So it makes it hard to side with under. I mean, you can make reasonable assumptions for why that happened, but it seems to happen in every single New Jersey General game. They don't get the ball very many times, but they score an awful lot. They're the best third down conversion team in the league. We were just talking there a couple seconds ago about quarterback play here, and I don't think we should slight Luis Perez at all. When DeAndre Johnson was out, remember last week we talked about their completion percentages on this team. Last 4 weeks, Luis Perez, 79.3, 76, 75%. Little off the week before when they tried to work DeAndre Johnson back into the mix. And then last week, the two quarterbacks combined to hit 78.6. I happen to think that Johnson will play here. He took a meaningless hit. No reason for him to be running around out there in the fourth quarter of that game. But I do think they'll have the two-headed combination. It's difficult to stop, guys. The Generals are so simplistic on offense, but yet nobody can stop them because they can run the football, because they have the best offensive line. And Philadelphia, even in a game where they knew it was going to be game planned, very basic, New Jersey still had 178 rushing yards, and they had like a 67-yard touchdown to start the game. Trey Williams broke loose. So I don't know that Philadelphia is going to stop New Jersey in this contest. And I'll just go back to what we talked about last week, Drew, because I had some numbers that showed indications that maybe Philadelphia's defense was getting better, right? They had 27 sacks plus tackles for loss and 13 takeaways in their last 4 games. But we had to note when going over those numbers, which are really, really good. I mean, 40 negative plays in the backfield and then 13 takeaways on top of that. But the opposition was Tampa, Houston, Michigan, and Pittsburgh. And what would they do when they played a playoff team, even in a vanilla setting? Well, I'll tell you what, those numbers went away. Only 3 combined sacks and tackles for loss, not very disruptive in the backfield, only 1 takeaway. So I don't know if Philadelphia's defense is any better. I know they can throw it a little, and they can run it much better at this point in time. I think, I have a play from the start of the season on New Orleans to win the whole thing at plus 450. As I sit here right now, I think New Jersey is the best team out of the 4, and I think they'll probably win it. I think they're plus $2 at this point in time. Philadelphia's a little scary because last week they backdoored this team. 1:55 left in the game in Philadelphia. They're good enough to go down the field with their passing game and their rushing game and score, and they did it. They were down 26-17. Boom, they scored a touchdown, 26-23. They cover with less than 2 minutes left. That could happen here again. I just don't think it will. I think New Jersey's the better team. I'd probably back that side, and I'm a little on the fence where the total is concerned. I don't think I have the guts to play under, even though I should in a playoff game. But the rate that New Jersey scores at, even with limited possessions, very, very scary for me at this point in time.
Guys, we got the other semifinal game, prime time, nationally televised, 8 p.m. Eastern. New Orleans Breakers, Birmingham Stallions. Trig, we can start off with you first. -4.5, -5, depending where we're shopping. Both numbers available out there, guys. 44, 44.5 being the total. Breakers, Stallions, great matchup here, Trig. What are you liking in the nightcap on Saturday?
Well, Drew, I took a week off from betting the Breakers last week. I knew they were going to rest basically everyone, which they did. So last week's result, completely irrelevant. But I cashed the prior 2 weeks with them when I came on the show and said I was all in on the Breakers, and I'm all in on the Breakers, Drew. Already made a best bet on this game, 4% play for my clients, Breakers plus 4.5. I think if that number moves, I'd imagine it will continue to drop because I think it did open at 5. You go back to the first 2 meetings between these two teams, really the Breakers could have easily won both of those games. They took a lead into the fourth quarter in the first one. The second one, they lost 10-9. In both games, if you look, Kyle Sloter, 4 interceptions, no touchdowns. But he played okay. It's just, it seemed like every time New Orleans could have put the game out of reach or come back and taken the lead, he threw a pick. A couple of those picks were at the goal line, and those ended up being killers. So I'm not saying that won't happen again, but Kyle Sloter, he played banged up for a good portion of the season, and last week got a very important week off, in my opinion. So if he was even a little bit better in those first 2 meetings, you probably have Breakers outright wins in both of them. And now coming into here, Drew, I really think the Breakers, the Stallions have kind of limped into this game, and it's been more than just the meaningless games, right? Like the last 2 weeks meant absolutely nothing. They lose that game to the Gamblers as a 12.5-point favorite. They lose to Tampa last week. But even if you go back to the prior weeks, the 10-9 win over New Orleans, that was, in my opinion, New Orleans really threw that game away. Go back the week before, they win by 10 over Pittsburgh, but not convincing at all. Kind of scored a touchdown late to put it out of reach. And even going further than that, really needed big fourth quarters to win, I think 3 other games. So in my opinion, they've been kind of trending downward for a while now. And so I guess I don't really see how they get into the playoffs and just turn it up and blast New Orleans, who has the best defense in the league. They had the best scoring defense in the league this year, with just allowing just 16.4 points per game. So, I'm going to take the points here because I think it's going to be difficult for Birmingham to pull away in this game. But I actually really like New Orleans to win. They're still my pick to win this whole thing. And I would sprinkle some on the money line here because I really do think New Orleans is the better side.
Robbie, these two teams played 2 unders already. The 10-9 game that Trig just kind of mentioned here just a couple weeks ago. We're seeing it 44, 44.5 being the total, -4.5, -5. That's the Stallions. Do you think they're limping here into the playoffs? What are you liking in this matchup?
I think they both limped in, Drew. We talked last week about how Larry Fedora, Kyle Sloter was basically benched 2 games ago, right? We won't count the Houston game last week where they brought up Shea Patterson to play. We talked about that too, that they might throw the game away and try to play it safe and use Shea Patterson. They did. But, in the Tampa Bay game, halftime, Kyle Sloter was benched. Larry Fedora had enough of him and his turnover tendencies, and he stuck the Baylor kid in there, and he played pretty well, hurt his wrist, came back last week, didn't play very well. They gave Sloter the week off. Let's see if he's better injury-wise, but they limped in down the stretch, and I'll just give you some numbers to prove it. The 3 games prior to Houston, if I count Houston, it gets worse, but we won't count that because Shea Patterson had a lot to do with it. The 3 games prior, New Orleans had 39 possessions, 39 drives. They scored 6 times. The other 33 out of 39 were either turnovers or punts or kneel downs at halftime, right? So they have done 0 on offense. But to Adam's point, Birmingham's the same way. Jamar Smith hadn't played really good. There was a stretch, couple of games where Bo Scarborough looked great. Then he didn't play great. They couldn't run the ball for a couple of games. They did get more total yardage last week. They just didn't really turn it into a lot of points. So I would say they're both limping in. But I'm going to side with Adam here. I mean, despite what I've said about the New Orleans offense, I'll just leave you with this. The 4 teams that are competing here in the semifinals, if you look at what they've done defensively to their opponents in the red zone, the other 3 teams not named New Orleans have allowed red zone touchdowns on at least 56.5% of the possessions that they've faced. New Orleans is hands down the best in the league at not allowing touchdowns when a team gets into the red zone. They've only allowed a touchdown 32% of the time all year. That's 24% less than any other playoff team. If they can convert Birmingham into field goals, and Birmingham, we talked about the dissension in their points scored last week. I think they went from 27 all the way down to 17 3 weeks prior to last week's game. If they can turn them into field goals, then good Sloter, bad Sloter, Fedora doesn't want to play him. He does want to. I don't think it matters. I think they can hang in that, like that 10-9 type of game that they just played. Adam mentioned how close these 2 games were, and the turnover or a big play at the right time. New Orleans certainly capable of a big play. They've got big play weaponry, and Fedora, to tell you the truth, guys, is probably more of a hurry up. He's the most hurry up tempo offensive coach in this league. If you just look at times that teams have had the ball possessions, New Orleans is a very fast offense, sometimes no huddle offense. Maybe they could tire Birmingham out a little bit. And I'll close it this way. Birmingham doesn't have home field advantage here. We're in Canton. There's no home field in Birmingham, no crowd for them unless, people are driving their cars up to Canton, Ohio, and gas is $6.50 a gallon, so they're probably not. I would say New Orleans plus points is probably the way I'd look.
Using the economy and the handicap, I like it, Robbie. Hey, Robbie, before we get Rob, I have a follow-up question for you. Bring up pretty much plays per minute. I love that stat when handicapping football totals. Is there a site out there putting that out, or are you doing that in the box score and then just dividing it by the time?
Yeah, that's the only way I can do it, Drew, because there was no site. And I'm basically using possessions, to tell you the truth, times these teams get the ball. And New Orleans is constantly 13 or more possessions in their games. And when you watch them, you can see they run right up to the line. They don't screw around in a huddle. And Larry Fedora, I think he started that up-tempo stuff the week that they destroyed Tampa back in week 3. It was like 34-3 when they won that game. And they just wore him out. And he's continued with that. They just haven't executed. So we'll see if they can execute this week. By the way, I said I would side with New Orleans. I think the better side here is probably under, with these 2 defenses both playing really well.
Even with the New Orleans up-tempo running a lot of plays on offense.
And it hasn't mattered because they haven't scored off of any of them. Like I say, 39 possessions, and 33 of them are punts or turnovers or kneel downs at halftime. Go as fast as you want. You're just kicking it back real quick.
Yeah, if you can't move the ball, it really doesn't matter. Tony, interested in your thoughts here. I mean, two good breakdowns, kind of tough follow in terms of New Orleans versus Birmingham. Also want to get your thoughts on something I was thinking about before the show. In football, sometimes we see it, in college football, like I'll bring up the SEC. Sometimes these SEC teams will play out of conference and run up some scores. And then when they play each other, it gets more, hey, play not to lose. We're going to punt the ball. We're going to play safe. You see it in the NFL as well in the playoffs. Sometimes they'll score a lot, and then it comes to playoffs, and it's like, hey, I don't want to, turn the ball over, take too many chances. Do you see that kind of philosophy happening in the USFL? We've seen some overs lately. It kind of caught up with us. Do you think heading into the playoffs, there'll be more of a mentality of, hey, let's play defense, let's play safe football, let's try to get out of here with a close win? Do you think that comes to fruition? And what are your thoughts here with the Breakers and Stallions?
Yeah, I absolutely do, Drew, and I think that's why I agree with Rob that the better play here is on the under, because it's a coin flip game for me, and in which case I'm with both of these gentlemen that you should take the points. But again, I'm not as confident in the Breakers as Trig is, simply because I could see the Stallions winning this contest, because both defenses have been excellent all season, and the Breakers have a standout front seven. You've got guys like Davin Bellamy, who was first team all USFL, and their linebacker core, Vontae Diggs, Jared Fernandez was on the USFL first team as well. All those guys have really brought it every week. And then same thing on the Stallions. You've got a solid front four and DeMarcus Gates, who led the team in tackles and sacks. And again, this has been a constant all season long. They've got Scooby Wright, who has name recognition and has also stood out for his play on the field. And I think to answer your question, if you're Larry Fedora and you're worried about Kyle Sloter and his 11 interceptions this season, you probably want to pull back the tempo. You want him to be comfortable out there, but you don't want him to lose you the game. And from that standpoint, I think that plays into the under's hands as well. These are two teams that have played each other twice. Both games were low scoring. I think this grand finale between the two also ends up being low scoring. I think the total opened at 45 and has trickled down to the 44 and a half. And I think that's the right call. I expect this game to be on the lower scoring end. Birmingham obviously wants to run. Jamar Smith put up better stats than all quarterbacks not named Kyle Sloter or Jordan Ta'amu, and has been consistent all season. He's working with Marlon Williams from UCF as his top receiver. Williams put up great stats at receiver, but I think they want to trust their run game. They want to trust Marable. They want to trust Bo Scarborough. So I think the clock will continue to run when the Stallions have the ball, and I think that we'll see New Orleans run the football a little more than they did during the regular season as well. I do trust New Orleans's receivers and tight end Sal Cannell a little more through the passing game if Sloter's feeling it. But again, we have to see how Sloter looks early on, if he's able to get comfortable, if he's healthy. So from that standpoint, again, I side with both of them. New Orleans plus the points is the play, but the better play is the under.
Like it. Tony Mejia, check him out, WagerTalk.com. If you like volume, he's your guy. We got Robbie Veno as well at Rob Veno Sports. Knows college football, NFL, obviously knows his USFL. And Adam Trigger, check him out at Top Flight SI on Twitter. In baseball, he's really hot right now. Also knows Korean baseball and the USFL, getting ready for NFL. So guys, check all three out at WagerTalk.com. I'm there as well, Drew Martin. So going around the horn here, best bets, Robbie Veno. Final thoughts as well. We'll have one more show here for the USFL Championship. Robbie, I don't know if they're calling it. Are they calling it the Super Bowl, the championship game? We'll have to figure this out. Robbie, also want to get your thoughts on USFL overall. You think this is something that's going to stick for the next couple years, man? Are you impressed with it? What are you thinking of the product, and where are you going for your best bet?
Well, I'll tell you what. I won't give you what I think of the product because I just love football. And if it's competitive football, I'm going to tell you I think it's a good product. But I'll tell you what the brass that are running the USFL, the players, the coaching staffs, all have nothing but praise for what's happened in this league this year. And its main goal, of course, guys, is to try and get some of these players back into the NFL. It's almost like AAA baseball. You're trying to get these guys another shot and teach them a little more, get them a few more reps, And I think it's done all of those. And the fact is, we talked in the very beginning of the year that they were economically smart in, using a bubble site, so to speak, Birmingham for everything, no travel costs, none of that stuff. They saved their money, and in a couple of years, they're going to try to get all these teams to be able to play at home sites. Maybe they'll have enough build-up by then. TV contracts are there, so we'll see. I like what I saw. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I can watch these games and find them competitive. I know it's not of the same elite level as NFL football is, but still, we know that going in. So I like it. It seems like the league, the people involved really like what they've accomplished here in year one, and we'll see how the playoffs and championship go and whether or not it gets a big audience. Hopefully it does here in late June, early July. What else is there to watch? I'm going to go to the Generals as my best bet here against Philadelphia. I'll lay the 4.5. A couple of things here, Drew. When you get into these playoff atmospheres, and you and Tony just hit on it, do things tighten up? Do coaches take a little bit of a we don't want to lose approach rather than let's go for the win approach? I'm not so sure which way they're going to lean in this league because it is such a showcase for talent. But what I'm sure of is that big plays generally win these games on both sides of the football. You have to have a pretty good kicking game, because kickers are going to be involved here in these contests for sure. And big plays on both sides. The Generals all year long, their offensive line needs to be praised up and down because they've only allowed 10 sacks on the entire season, 1 sack a week on average, and they have the league's best rushing game. And I think that they have the best quarterback play. The two-headed system worked all year long. Johnson remains the better of the two as far as overall talent is concerned, but Perez in that passing game, and again, they're so simple, guys. They run the football, they get you to come up, and then they dink you. They throw screens, they throw slants. They don't necessarily go way downfield, and they just chew up clock, chew up yardage, and score points. I don't know that Philadelphia can match that. Their team has allowed 25 sacks. Case Cookus, the last couple of weeks, we saw him hit pretty hard. And last week, they didn't play him a lot. So I think the Generals probably get to him a little bit. Big plays on offense. I heard you guys as I was coming on to the show talking about Victor Bolden, the electric wide receiver, to go with the running game. They just have all the pieces here. So give me Generals minus 4.5 is the best bet.
Like it, Robbie. Good stuff from Robbie. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. We got Adam Trigger as well. Trig, always good to hear your analysis, man. If you got any thoughts on what you're thinking of the product, how you think the future goes, the USFL, love to hear it. And where are you going for your best bets, man?
Drew, I really enjoyed it. I know I complained a little bit the last couple weeks because the way it worked out. And it's like the schedule makers got to be so pissed, right, Drew? Because they really made a schedule that should have had a really competitive finish. And there was just a couple teams just ended up being so bad that it made those last couple weeks with a lot of meaningless games. But you know what? We got 2 awesome matchups for the playoffs. Like these are going to be great games. I think both games have the potential to be really good football games. So I'm really excited for Saturday. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to see if these teams play in their home cities because Birmingham ended up getting a pretty good turnout for the Birmingham games. And I think that may be the case if, depending on how they roll it out to play in their home cities. But I enjoyed the league. I hope it's back next year. I'll be looking forward to betting it again next year. And for my best bet, Drew, I hope Larry Fedora goes over to Kyle Sloter, obviously when he has his helmet on, and just gives him a nice slap upside the head and says, listen, pal, like you need to focus here because those interceptions, he threw 4 interceptions in those first 2 games and no touchdowns, but 2 of them came as New Orleans was going into the end zone. And it would have been the difference, at least the second game, it would have been the difference in that 10-9 game. He's flying down the field and just misreads like a crossing route and throws it right to the Birmingham player, which was like, it's probably, like the other 2 said, it's probably going to be a low-scoring game. So if you can avoid a catastrophic mistake like that negates a touchdown, you're probably going to cover 4.5. And I think him sitting out a week is going to do him good. I also think him getting benched will do him some good. I really like New Orleans. I've been saying it for weeks. I love this defense. Rob made an awesome point about how good they are in the red zone. 16.4 points per game is the best scoring defense in the league. I think this is too many points. I actually like the Breakers to win. So best bet, 4% play for me, Drew. New Orleans Breakers plus 4.5. I expect to see them next Sunday in the final.
And guys, you can even get +5 on that. Trig's doing the stand-up thing and giving widely available, but you can get +5 if you're in Vegas at Caesars, and also DraftKings hanging a +5 right now. And it sounds like sprinkle a little bit on the money line, Trig, or just mainly on the point spread?
Oh yeah, I'm not. That's not even my style. I don't just bet money line every time I play a dog. But here, I really like them to win, Drew. And if you look. The numbers, if you want to talk numbers real quick, I mean, I guess the favorites are 30-10 straight up, so that probably wouldn't prove my point here. But let's just put it this way: New Orleans, they should have won one of the first two meetings. I think they're going to get this one. So yeah, I would sprinkle a little on the money line as well.
Good stuff from Adam Trigger. We got Tony Mejia as well. He knows his college football. He's throwing out some volume for you guys, MLB as well. Tony. Love hearing your analysis, not only on the USFL, all the sports, man. What were your thoughts here? USFL overall, what are you thinking for the future of the league, and where's your best bet going?
It was scary early because it was so ugly. But I like the tweak of letting the clock run on incompletions. I think that helped because, we'll sit through 3.5, 4-hour NFL games, but it's not going to happen for the USFL. I'm curious to see how this weekend's product unfolds because it's going to be I think the first game is on Fox and the Stallions Breakers is on NBC on Saturday night, so certainly widely available. These are the top 4 teams. They've proven it throughout the course of the season, so hopefully they give us a good show and we'll see who tunes in. I was underwhelmed by the betting on the USFL part of this because I thought more people would embrace a pro league in the spring and into the summer, but it didn't really happen that way. But again, like if you actually sat down and watched like we did over the course of 10 weeks, you saw that the product did improve after the start. And I think the key is going to be getting these teams into their home markets ultimately so they can establish a fan base. And I don't think it should be in NFL stadiums, obviously, because then that would be, not a great visual to see empty seats in 80,000 seat or facility, but you do have soccer stadiums available throughout most of these cities. Philadelphia can play in where the Union plays. Certainly New Orleans could play where Tulane plays its college football. Houston where the Dynamo plays. So we'll have to see how this all works out over the course of the next 5 years, but certainly a decent start. I'm with Rob on the New Jersey Generals as my best bet, but for the sake of variety, I will go with the under in Birmingham and New Orleans. Both defenses solid throughout the season. In the red zone, they gave up the least amount of points, 16.4 for New Orleans, 16.9 for Birmingham. And there's some wiggle room there. I think a conservative approach early will help. Give me the full game under for Birmingham and New Orleans' semifinal.
Okay, looking to kind of tighten it up there on the under, guys. For my best bet, I'm in line with Trig here. I like this Breakers team. I think their defensive line is going to give Birmingham trouble. Also watching Birmingham, just kind of their quarterback play up against good defensive lines. We saw them struggle before. I mean, both games stayed under, but also the quarterback play wasn't always there for the Stallions, even though Jamar Smith has been good, one of the better quarterbacks up against this Breakers defensive line. I think it's going to give them trouble. So going with the Breakers plus the 5, plus the 4.5. If you can get 5 at DraftKings or Caesars, I would go with that. Always put the extra 0.5 point in your pocket. My overall thoughts of USFL, to Tony's point, I think they need to concentrate a little bit more on the visuals. Maybe stay away from these NFL stadiums. I don't think a lot of people realize Legion Field, I lived in Alabama for 5 years. It's a huge stadium. I don't know exactly what the attendance is, but I'm pretty sure you can fit more than 70,000 people in there. I think they need to concentrate on smaller stadiums, making the visual look a little bit better. But I think this is going to turn into something, like minor league baseball, like into football. I think there's demand here in the United States of America for more football, and with the betting aspect as well. If I was in charge of the USFL, I would run with that, and I think it's here to stay. Like stock value, I would buy the USFL. I think this is actually going to work, guys. It will be interesting to see what happens in the next couple years, but yeah, pretty much in agreement with what Tony was kind of laying down there, guys. But in recap, 4 best bets, we got it up here in the screen. We got Adam Trigger, New Orleans plus 4.5. I'm going to join him on that with the Breakers plus 4.5. We get Rob Veno in the first game, New Jersey -4 and a hook, and we get New Orleans, Birmingham under 44.5 for Tony Mejia. Check out Adam Trigger, Rob Veno, Tony Mejia at WagerTalk.com. Plays up and available, 5% plays, USFL plays, free plays, as well as the WagerTalk odds screen, guys, for the most live, free, up-to-date odds in the industry. For Adam, Rob, Tony, I am Drew. Best of luck with your bets. Let us know below in the reply section what you thought of the show, what you're looking to bet this weekend. All is welcome. Please smash that like button. Guys, we'll talk next week for the USFL Championship game. Thanks for tuning in.